then I'm going to start the webinar. Even the people who are joining us via live stream will see me bobbing my head. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Just going to give a moment for everybody to actually get connected, see our numbers going up. Welcome everybody to day 10 of our March series of webinars for Lymphedema Awareness Month. And we are really excited for Brad Smith to be talking about compression options for head and neck lymphedema. And we are also excited to welcome another one of our Magenta sponsors, Jobst Essity. No, forgive me. Essity's first. Essity Jobst. And today we have Rita Scala and Rachel presenting. And they are going to generously give away a Jovi head and neck. Is that right, Rita? Yes? A Jovi head and neck. And
yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. And so stay to the end, because only if you stay to the end can you get one of those. And the caveat is that you have to have if you're a patient, you have to have a therapist that you are actively working with. Not that you're getting intensive treatment, but that you have a therapist that you have at least the ability to check up with. Or if you're a therapist, well, I'm sure that you're able to measure appropriately for a patient, and we welcome that as well. So let me just make sure that we have Brad, which we don't just yet, in which case, Rita, would you be able to go ahead and present first in this scenario, since we don't have Brad on yet?
Sure. I mean, yeah. I'm happy to. And Rachel, are you available? I don't know if Rachel's with me. We were going to kind of share the presentation.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, Rita, let's give a few minutes. What I always like to do is I like to also give the audience a chance to kind of connect with us too. So instead of rushing you, since we're waiting for Rachel and I'm waiting for Brad, I would love to see if anybody in the audience would like to share anything, or if you have a question. So let's open it up to hear your voice. So if you have a question or a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll let you have the stage. Or not. Okay, here we go. Vanessa. Oh, Vanessa, who is our famous Wheel of Names contributor. I'm going to put you on so you can talk. And if you wanted to, let's see, can we share your video too? Vanessa, you can at least go ahead and share your voice.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, Vanessa.
How
are you?
I'm well. I've really been enjoying the webinars. They're super informative. And even though my lymphedema presents itself in the lower limbs, in the right and left legs, I find the lymphedema that presents itself in the head and the neck and the arms as equally informative. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to sit in on the webinars each night. And the question that I had was, are there inexpensive options for toe caps? Because many of them are start at least at $90 and above. So
yes. So there are definitely toe cap options, and Rita, I'll let you maybe speak on the price point, but allow me to grab this toe cap that I just so happen to have here.
Okay.
And it's I have one from Jobst and one from Medi. Forgive me, Rita, I hope you don't mind me showing another brand. And you know what I have to do is I just need to set up the camera a little bit. So I'm gonna spotlight Rita and let her have the floor for a moment.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So, let me just spotlight you, Rita. One second. And there you go. Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So perhaps you can talk about the price point for the Jobst toe cap.
Sure. Well, it'll really depend on the amount of swelling that you do have, particularly in your toes, and in working with your therapist, if you've determined if you're going to be getting a ready to wear or custom option. And I will gladly, follow up with you afterwards. Where are you from, may I ask?
I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
And is there a current dealer there that you like working with, or somewhere that you currently go for your compression garments?
Well, I like Medi because I've used their compression stockings, but I'm open to other options. I've used Jobst in the past, but Jobst only worked for me when my swelling was very mild in the beginning. And then I had to get a custom Circade. And so I'm at that stage, but I have significant swelling in my foot. I like to call it Flintstone feet because that's what I have.
Oh, so we could get you. So we do have a really inexpensive option, and I don't want to quote you the exact price because it really is going to come from whoever you're ordering through, which dealer you're working with. But we do have a Ferro toe cap. It's our Ferro Wrap products, and they're very light. They're ready to wear. They come in a 15 to 20 millimeter or a 20 to 30 millimeter. So that's going to be your least expensive option. And Jeanette is actually doing a great job of putting that on right now. But then if you did have to go custom, we would have to get you with a custom fitter to go ahead and measure all your toes individually.
Okay.
I didn't quite share my video yet because I wanted to get things ready. So they're still only looking at you, Rita.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to show them everything once I'm a little bit more ready. But you know what? I'm kind of ready now. So
no, that looks really good. And so I like that. So when Jeanette shows you this, keep in mind, this is our ready to wear version. This is our Ferro Wrap. This is our toe cap. So if you use our Ferro Wraps, this is what we would recommend. And you're going to notice that the toes on her toe cap are a bit long, and that's because they are trimmable. So it does become somewhat of a custom garment because you can go ahead and trim those.
Okay.
Rachel, do you know the approximate MSRP on it?
Hi, I'm Rachel Lucas. I'm from Jobst also. I'm on with Rita. I do not know the MSRP on it either, but it might fall in the category of what you mentioned, like a little bit under $100.
Yeah.
It is all individual, and it's, insurance driven and things like that. So it's always worth exploring what options you have with the insurance too.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is a great point that Rita pointed out, which is that these are trimmable, which is a really cool feature. And
it is.
Just a quick disclaimer, since we're talking about sponsored products, the NLN does not endorse any particular product or brand. We're just connecting you to the available options for treatment. And that's just a disclaimer that we always have to say before we introduce you to any product. But we do love Jobst and we do love their products. We just can't officially endorse them. And then this is another one that is available from another sponsor, Circade, Medi Circade, and it's a similar thing. This is not trimmable, so that's something to keep in mind. But it's also a cost-effective option for managing the toes as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the two, and I'm glad that I had the chance. I'm so glad, Vanessa. I swear it's like you read my mind and the universe heard me, because I was thinking that I forgot to include this in the presentation when I was doing the toes, and so I'm so happy that you asked so that I had the opportunity to show everything. So here are the two, and
okay, great.
Yeah. All right. So as you can see, there's a degree of flexibility that's required when you have toe involvement and when you have foot involvement. You have to be able to kind of cross your legs. You have to be able to reach your feet. And so this was the other point that I was making the other day, which is, if you're waiting for therapy for your legs, it's okay. Just work on increasing your flexibility because you're going to need it.
Okay.
And with that, thank you so much, Rita, for filling in, and also Rachel. And
thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa, for joining us. And it is now my pleasure to welcome the one and only Brad Smith. He and I go way back, and I had the pleasure of standing in as one of his teaching assistants one time when he was teaching in New Jersey, and I learned a whole lot. And I'm so looking forward to his talk again today. And so, Brad, can you please tell everybody, your full credentials and everything, because it's so long and I always forget. So that would be great if you can start with that, and then we look forward to your presentation.
You bet. Thanks. I'm sorry I was late getting on. And I'm sorry I'm getting bald blindness shining on you guys. So I'm trying to get my head up here where it doesn't hurt you too bad. I'm a speech pathologist. I worked at MD Anderson Cancer Center for 12 years. For the past 4.5, I've been in Dallas at Baylor University Sammons Cancer Center. I am a speech pathologist and a certified lymphedema therapist. I was the instructor for the head and neck course for Norton School of Lymphatic Therapy up until this year and for the past 10 years. So I've seen a lot of head and neck cancer patients, lots of head and neck lymphedema. We published a couple of articles while I was down at MD Anderson. I've written a couple of book chapters and some articles on this. So I see a lot of this. Glad to talk to you today about compression, which I think is as important, if not more so, than manual lymph drainage. One of the things that I like to do is to give people cost-effective solutions. So today, what we're going to talk about is a combination of things that could be very simple as far as compression wrapping. We're also going to do some off-the-shelf garments and talk about some custom fit garments. So if it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and get started with that. Jeanette, anything else you want me to talk about beforehand?
No, the floor is yours.
Very good. By the way, I also wear a toe cap, just to chime in on the last part of the talk. And so I am a big guy. I'm not all that flexible. So I sit on the bed and prop my foot up there so I can put it on. And it's hugely helpful for me. So I sympathize for those of you that had to wear that. So I'm going to share my screen here, show you a PowerPoint that I've got pulled up. So 1 second. Can everybody see that? Hopefully.
Yes. I'm sorry, I muted. Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
And let me try to keep that out of the way. The bar at the top of the screen doesn't interfere with that, does it? Where I'm seeing labels and all that. You can see the top of the label?
No, we just see just the slide.
Beautiful. Okay. So my contact information via email is on the bottom if anybody's interested in reaching out to me after the talk. Why is it not going here? Hang on. Huh. Very strange. I should be able to click that. There we go. Oh, okay, wait, I can't see because that thing is in my way. So we're gonna move that. There we go. So why should you wear compression? Okay, people are always talking about massage and manual lymphatic drainage. And I know you had a nice talk yesterday, if you were on, by Lane Bowman, talking about manual lymphatic drainage. Well, you know that the lymphatic system helps control fluid levels in the body. And when the fluid overloads the system and collects in the tissues, we get swelling or edema. Head and neck lymphedema, this presents in the neck, in the face, internally, whether it's in the oral cavity, the tongue, or the cheeks, or further down in the voice box, in the back tissues of the throat, and so forth. And it can create all kinds of problems, some of them mild, some of them severe. So it's easy for us to use manual lymph drainage to address the external edema in the face and in the neck. It's much more difficult to access those tissues internally. But we always want to use compression to help with control of fluid collection and reshaping of the tissues. So with lymphedema, the body's ability to control the fluid collection is affected by lots of different things. And I have lymphedema in my leg. And so by the end of the day, have a problem with swelling, but in the morning, my swelling is better because it's been up all night. Head and neck patients tend to be worse in the morning. They tend to be affected by posture. If their head is down, looking at the chin, their face is going to swell more, temperature and all sorts of things, just like any location of lymphedema. But the body's ability to control the fluid varies throughout the day, as you well know. MLD moves that fluid out of the swollen tissues to reduce the swelling, but we need, this is a problem. It's blocking my screen and I'm having a hard time seeing that. I apologize. what happens after we do MLD? Oh, shoot, I apologize. Do you guys know, is it possible to minimize this bar on the bottom that has all the stop video and mute and such in it?
I don't believe so,
Can I put
Brad.
it on the side? It's right in the middle of my screen. I can't see it. I can't move it.
Yeah, I think if it's any better, what you
I'll
can
just
do.
move it around when I need it.
Okay.
Okay. So, but what happens after we do our MLD? We've got a problem where there we go. We get return of the swelling. Think of it, the old horror movies. You've got a problem, it won't go away. So it's frustrating for you. Creates sadness. Okay, you get upset. You're fearful. It's not going to go away. It's always going to be this way. You get hopeless. You get angry. And after a time, you say, why should I even bother? Because I'm doing the massage every day. It keeps coming back. If I don't use compression, this is a cycle. So you tend to massage and it goes down and it comes right back up. You get on a roller coaster and it's a problem. So today we always hear things, keep calm, relax, help's on the way. Well, what kind of help are we talking about? We're talking about compression. When you do MLD, compression is the partner that goes with that. Compression and MLD work together to get the best results, just like Batman and Robin. You want to choose your right guy, though. If you've got a guy like this, you're going to be able to accomplish lots of stuff. He's strong, he's effective, he can do what he wants. If you do the wrong kind of compression, may not be the same results that you get, okay? So that is not me modeling, but it could be. So what we want to do is to use the right kind of compression and make sure that we're getting good effects. And so the reason that we do this is several. We can soften up hard tissues if you've got what's called pitting edema, which we know about. Pitting edema is an extra fluid content in the tissue, and it leaves a dent like you see in that patient's neck. We can use compression before we do MLD to soften that tissue up and make it drain more effectively. Have you ever gone by and you see a tractor? The bucket is sitting way up high. Sometimes they're suspending equipment from that over the weekend so nobody will steal it. Why does that tractor bucket stay up there even though it's turned off? Well, it's because there's pressure on the system. It's got a hydraulic system, and when the pressure's in the hydraulic hoses, it keeps those pieces of equipment elevated, and as long as the pressure's on the system, the bucket won't come down. So if we do MLD and we've moved the fluid out and then we apply pressure to that, it helps promote continued drainage. So you apply pressure after you've massaged, the fluid is going to go out, and as long as there's pressure applied, it's going to continue to drain for a while. So we see this whenever you have a problem where you do massage all day long, but you never wear your compression. It goes down, it comes up, it goes down, it comes up. You put the compression on, the longer you wear it, the longer it stays out. So often I'll have my patients try to wear their compression 3 to 4 hours after they've done a manual lymphatic drainage session. Some people find that challenging. So if you're able to wear it an hour, you might get fluid return within an hour or two. If you're able to wear it 3 or 4 hours, it may stay out 6 or 8 hours. And if you're able to wear it all night long, it may stay out half a day before it comes in. So it's to your benefit to try to wear it for a longer period of time. I wear compression on my leg all day from the time that I get up to the time I go to bed, and it keeps it under control. If I was only to wear it for a short period of time, it would come back. And when I'm rebellious and on the weekends I want to wear shorts and I don't wear my compression, after a day, my leg is bothering me and I have to put it back on. So over time, with the use of compression, the degree of swelling that returns will be less and less. That can shorten the length of time that you need to perform your intensive treatment, and it improves the overall results of our treatment. So how do we do compression? There are lots of different methods. 3 main ways of doing this: bandaging, chin straps, and face masks. And we're going to talk about all those. But the question is, which one do you choose? Why would you choose one over another? And it depends on what's the most effective. That's going to depend on, like you see these 3 examples, the location and the firmness of the swelling. The patient on the right just has swelling underneath the chin in the neck. That's relatively straightforward to deal with. Not as complicated generally as somebody like the patient in the middle or on the left, where we have much more involved facial swelling. The tongue is involved in the patient in the middle. The lips are grossly swollen on the patient on the left. We have tracheostomy tubes that we have to consider. So we have to be careful where we apply pressure, how we apply pressure, the garments that we use, and the way that we apply padding in all these situations. That's why it's important to work with a skilled therapist with experience in this so that you don't get yourself into a problem. Where's that thing? One more time, sorry. Okay, other things. We have concerns such as physical limitations. Maybe you have a problem with blockage in the carotid artery that we don't want to compress. Maybe you don't have a good caregiver who can help you put the garment on or off. Maybe the cost is a huge concern to you. And so there are inexpensive methods, and there's also very expensive garments that are out there. Got to find something that's easy for you to use. If it's too complicated, perhaps maybe you have an upper arm problem and you can't reach up to put that on there. That's going to be a challenge, particularly if you don't have someone to help you. So there's a lot of considerations as to how we approach this. One way that we use this is with non-elastic bandages. These look like ACE bandages, but they're not. They are constructed differently and they operate differently. And if you were to use an ACE bandage, it's going to apply pressure at the wrong time and can result in headaches. So we want to use non-elastic bandages. Now, this is not my favorite way to apply compression to the head and neck, but it is something that you can do for particular circumstances where maybe I don't have a garment readily available. The patient needs something to put on right now that they can replicate at home. And other times, this is a very inexpensive option. And for financial reasons, patients may need this. But most often, if I've got a large gentleman, like the gentleman on the right, he has a very large face and head, and his measurements are bigger than what I can get in a custom off-the-shelf or a off-the-shelf garment, and he doesn't have the ability to buy a custom garment, we can do something like this, at least for an initial approach. What you see here is a very simple wrap on the right, where I'm basically wrapping it around his head and getting pressure underneath the jaws and the side of the lower face there. What you see on the left here is a much more complicated advanced wrap done by a very skilled therapist, where they've done a combination of that simple wrap as well as a nice wrap around the neck. Now, these are always used in combination with foam pads. We don't ever want to just use the wrap by itself because we want the padding in there to help disperse the pressure and more evenly distribute the fluid throughout the tissues. There are also off-the-shelf garments that we again will use foam pads. These can range anywhere from $30 to $100, depending on where you buy them. These days, I've had my patients go on Amazon to purchase things because they're more affordable. So there's also custom-made measurements, made-to-measure garments. There are specialty things. This gentleman, you can see, has a lot of facial swelling. His eyes are swollen shut. We need things like this, like a custom eye pad that can be placed over his eyes, but sometimes we can do that with a homemade, inexpensive option. Also, there are things that aren't really designed for lymphedema, but we can modify them and make them work. And these are oftentimes less expensive than what you can find from a vendor or other resources. And they will maybe fit properly if we add some foam or we modify them. So let me walk you through a few of these things. We talk about gray foam or foam padding. There's two different kinds of foam that a therapist will use. Gray foam comes in various thicknesses, and then there's the orange complex foam. For the purposes of what we're talking about, most of the time I use that gray foam. It's about a 1/2 inch thick, and we cut it to shape to fit underneath the neck and along the lower part of the face. That does great for purposes after the massage of doing the manual lymphatic drainage, and you strap on the chin strap with a piece. I'm going to show you that. If we have to soften up firm tissues that are pitting, we're going to use the complex foam and cut that into very small little blocks. I like 1/4 inch blocks rather than 1/2 inch size. And then we put them on some tape, and I'll show you an example of that as well. To apply pressure here, soften up that hard tissue, make it more movable, so that when we apply the manual lymphatic drainage or the massage to it, that the tissues will stretch well so it'll drain better. Sometimes we use what we call a chip bag, and a chip bag is simply a length of gauze or a sock or a tube of some sort that you've got that you filled up with foam blocks. And that works okay, but if you notice on the patient on the right where that big red arrow is pointing, there's a great big groove that that tube has created. Now, when I made that chip bag, it was flat, but as he wore it, it rolled up and kind of created a long sausage tube. And that sausage tube then digs into his neck and makes it divoted rather than flat and smooth the way I would like it to be. A Schneider pack is what we call this pad that we make with a chip that's flatter. So chip bags are good, like the one you see here, if you've got a big deep crease, but if you want something to make it flatter, we need something like this on the bottom that we call a Schneider pack, named after Bernd Schneider at the Foley Clinic. What you've seen there is you've got a lot of little foam chips. I've put them between 2 layers of tape. I roll that all together to get it good and flat and get all the air out of it, and then I can trim it. And that's going to fit up under that garment that you see on the right there, and it gives a nice flat low profile fit, and it does a nice job of softening that tissue. Now, that flattening pad that I've made out of the gray foam, like I said, we use it after manual lymphatic drainage. The reason for that is it continues the drainage after we've done MLD, and it prevents the tissues from refilling. So as I said earlier, longer the wear time, the longer the carryover before the fluid will refill that tissue. So it flattens your tissues out, it smooths it. So if you were to wear that lumpy pad, that Schneider pack, then what's going to happen is that when you take that off, your tissue is going to be all lumpy and bumpy, and it's not going to look all that nice. It'll be softer and it'll be flatter, but it's going to be kind of ugly looking. I prefer for you, when you take this off, for this to look really good. And so we put a nice flat pad on there. It squishes that tissue. That's my scientific term, is squishing. I'm going to squish that tissue down. It's going to be nice and smooth when I take that off. And when you take it off, you're going to be able to see a difference, and it looks nicer for you. So back in the day when I used to be doing this early on, I tried to make a lot of complex, crazy shapes to try to fit the ears and go up and make it fit different parts. And I always ended up whittling it down to something that looked like that. So basically what we're taking is a rectangle of foam. We're going to round the top of it, round the edges of it, cut a bevel on it. And then that's going to fit up underneath that chin and neck really nice. And this shape that you're seeing right there is probably what I use 80 to 90% of the time for most of my patients who come in. It's comfortable, it's flat, it's soft, and it's able to apply pressure the way we need it. It's not washable. That's a downside to it because of the foam, but we can always replace the outer cover. I always put this inside a stockinette or some cover that won't irritate your skin. If you notice the shapes here, I try to make this kind of a long rectangle. Maybe I'm from Texas, so everything from Texas related to the Alamo. So we're going to make kind of an Alamo shape, or Ayers Rock there in Australia. I always cut modifications to make this bend better. I don't just put a flat piece of foam up there. That picture on the bottom middle, you see some grooves cut into the foam. You see grooves in different places, allows this to bend. Also, if you have a tracheostomy tube, or if you're a laryngectomy and you've got a laryngectomy tube, we want to accommodate that so it doesn't sit over top of where you're breathing. We can accommodate around the ear or other places that we need to avoid. We can cut this out. Down towards the bottom, it says cut out areas to avoid the carotid blockage. If your carotid arteries are clogged to a significant degree, we don't want to apply pressure to that side of your neck. But we can use the pad and cut a notch out or hollow that area out so it doesn't fit tightly up against the neck and apply pressure there. So there's always something that we can do to make this work for most people. Bandaging. Let's talk a little bit about bandaging. Like I said, you can do a simple wrap up and around like this. I'm just going to show you real quickly. See if I can get this down here a minute.
Brad, can I make you large? So can we stop sharing your screen so that we can see you use your app?
about to try to do that. Hang on one second here.
I can
Stop
do it for you.
there. Perfect. There we
Great.
go. All right. So let's say we have a bandage. I'm a big guy, and this needs to happen because I can't fit in a normal garment. So you take your non-elastic bandage. This one has already been cut down. What you would do, and this is more for the therapist, is you would wrap around here and get one length of tape. Then you would take that and you would double that length, where now I've got two pieces. I've got one bandage, but it's in two levels. You can see that. Now, what I do, and I'll show you in a minute on the other picture, is I attach a pad to the inside portion of this. I don't have a pad with me. Yeah, I do. Hang on a second. Here's my non-covered up pad. So here's my foam pad. That's going to fit up under here. And then I'm going to have this where this will wrap around and connect. Okay, pretty simple fit. I adjust this where it connects and underneath on this part, but this is basically what we're doing. So I'm going to go back and show you on the screen two different ways this can be done. So hang on one second, share screen. Go back here. Oh, got to go all the way down. So where is that? Okay, sorry, I'm not as smooth on this as I should be. Okay, here and here. There we go. Okay, so two things you see here. One of them is what I just showed you, wrap around. Pad is on the underside of that. If you're able to apply something like this, this works really nicely for a patient who is a bigger person. You need something that's kind of flexible as far as size. But one problem that comes with this, if you look at the patient on the bottom right, this is squeezing him on the side of his face, and it's kind of squishing the fluid into the middle, making his cheeks bunch up a little bit. We don't really want that. So this is not great for the front face. Where this works pretty well is if you have swelling under your chin, the low face, front part of the neck. That works all right. Now, we can wrap it like that, like I showed you. You can also wrap it just continuously, round and around until you run out of bandage. If you sew, you can take what I did a while ago and you can sew a little dart there at the chin, and that will hold that in position. If you look at the picture on the bottom right, you see there's Velcro sewn into that. So if you have the ability to sew, or you know somebody who sews, they can sew a dart that holds the pad in position at the chin, and the Velcro at the top makes it very easy to connect. If you can't sew like me, then I do it like I showed you a while ago. I wrap it around, cut that, and then we connect it with tape or with those clips that everybody hates, but I like them. And I'll put them right over top of the compression pad so that there's no way it's going to scratch your skin. Now, this is not easy for a lot of folks. Problems that happen with this, it may be hard to reproduce this. I show this picture because this husband and wife team worked very well together, and she liked helping him and he was glad to have the help, and she's very proud of how she did that, and she did a wonderful job. Sometimes we have to be careful though about tightness, about obstruction of things like trach tubes and laryngectomy tubes. You see on the bottom right, that's partially blocking his airway. You don't want to do that. We don't want it to be too tight, particularly around the neck, but even around the face. If it squishes the face too much, that's not good. If it's too tightly wrapped around the neck, that can cause blood flow problems or breathing problems, and we need to be careful about that. The next line, other than the bandages, is what we call off-the-shelf garments. These are not custom fit. These are not measured, detailed measurements, to make them custom fit for your face. These are generic garments, oftentimes used for plastic surgery, but we find them helpful for lymphedema, and I use them as a pad holder. So the custom foam pad that I'm going to cut for the face or the neck, I'm going to put on there and then hold it in position with my garment. These are just some examples of various styles of garments that you can see. I love how that in the catalogs, they don't put anybody that actually has facial swelling or neck swelling on here. They're all models, but there's a couple of specialty items that you can see here. If you look on the very bottom, there's one that has an ear muff on that. If you happen to have swelling in the ear, that's very helpful. You can use that in that area. The rest of them you're going to see are kind of a similar design. So some of them you see have a split by the ear. Some of them fit just under the chin. Some of them go all the way down the neck. These are varying sizes, varying prices. And so what you need to do, if you're interested in examining these, is go to the websites for these products and contact them. If you're a therapist, you can ask for samples of their products and they can send them to you. If you're a patient and you're working with a therapist, then what I would suggest is go to the website, download their measurement specifics, and then it's going to tell you you need to be of a certain dimension in the neck and a certain dimension around the head, and then you pick your sizes accordingly. And so I use a number of these, and it just depends on price and availability as to what my patient may select, how they like it. If you really have a fashion flair, and you might like that one on the top with leopard, and they have some other things that have clouds and others. And other nice things about this is that they do have some pediatric sizes. If you have a child who's dealing with head and neck, or a small person who is of a more diminutive stature. These work great. I use off-the-shelf garments more often than I use anything else because I can make it work for the patient, and it's affordable for the most part. Like I said, most of the time now, I will have a patient go on Amazon, order a particular garment, and it's going to run somewhere between $50 and $70. If that's too much, we can find something that's cheaper. But I have also found that if we go with the $20 garment, oftentimes it doesn't hold up. It might be way too small, and there are some other issues with that. So there's also what we would consider a hybrid garment. And so this particular group of garments is not measured specifically for you, but it's not a thin layer of material either. These have quilted pads. That adds more compression. That's important for someone who has a lot of hard, firm tissue in here. They need more pressure oftentimes to soften that than what those soft fabric masks will show. And so this is a nice option for some people. The company here, Jovipac, and it's now is with Jobst, has the cherry pit pack. And some people use these for arms and legs with very hard material, hard swellings, and that does great for that. But you have to be careful for patients with head and neck swelling, because if you have a bone like your jawbone and you put too much pressure with something really hard like this cherry pit pack, it can cause some problems with the skin. The picture that you see there, that patient wore this for less than 3 minutes, and those indentations stayed in his cheek for 30 minutes. And that's really a lot of heavy fibrosis in his skin. And I used this one time on a patient, and it caused his skin to break down because I left it on too long. So we have to be careful with what we use. Might be better off using a foam pad here rather than something really hard like this. So just be careful with those kind of things. Here's another example of a hybrid material by BioCare, which now is Lohmann and Roscher, I think, or Sigvaris. But this also is quilted, has a nice fit, fits that upper chest, which is very nice and hard to fit sometimes. Patients who've had thyroid surgery oftentimes have a scar down on the low neck, and traditional pads and garments don't always cover that. So this might be an option for someone who's got some swelling in the upper chest, lower neck, and using this in combination with a garment of some sort. Things that are bad about off the shelf is that they're not going to fit any two people the same way. So if you feel like you need compression on the front part of your face, my recommendation is always a custom fit garment, because this comes out of the box with eye holes and mouth holes and nose openings in one particular spot, and it's not going to fit you like it's going to fit me. So if it doesn't fit properly, then we can move fluid into areas like under the eyes, or make the lips pooch out, or other areas that we don't want to have more swelling. And so we can avoid that if we have facial edema by doing something custom. If you look at this lady in the middle on that picture, it really is squeezing her face into the center. And so we don't want to do that if we can avoid that. So that brings us to custom garments, and these are made to measure. We measure off of a template, and each manufacturer has their own. And so the therapist or a fitter can go in and then measure the dimensions of your neck, various points on your head and face, and then provide those measurements to the manufacturer who creates the garment. Some of these are relatively inexpensive, $150. Some of them are quite expensive, over $500. And so depending on what your particular needs are, you may find that certain garments are better suited for your needs, for your budget. Maybe one company works with insurance and the other company doesn't. So lots of different options here as far as these. So again, go on the website and look and see what the options are. So this is something that I tend to use for a patient who has swelling in the front of the face, cheeks, lips, eyes, upper cheeks here, as opposed to the lower jaws and the lower part of the face. Usually we can get by without something like this. They can also make, by the way, custom chin straps like what you see on the right, that's or on the far left, that is not a full face mask. The one in the middle that you see there, the black one, is 2 pieces. And so that is a chin strap with a second face piece. And so that's kind of a build your own custom system. But depending on what you need, your therapist can guide you along that line. And if you need help, there are multiple vendors who can help you. And I'm also glad to answer questions if I can. So there are also cheap things, affordable head and neck compression alternatives. Some of them are great, some of them are not. So the beauty masks and things that you may see, I've seen several things like the pink one and the orange one and the one on the top right while I was flying on a plane reading a magazine, and you see these ads for these. So I ordered some just to see if they worked, and they were $30, and they were so small they wouldn't fit my smallest patient. So they were made for a petite lady to help with wrinkles. And so they call them beauty masks. So I thought, well, maybe they would work. For my particular needs, they didn't work. You may find things like ski masks or motorcycle or paintball masks or hunting masks, or like I said, beauty masks, lots of different things that can work depending on what you need. And so for someone who's on a budget, if they can go and find, I like the one with the skull, is my personal favorite. If you can find something like that, and then maybe even we apply some padding to the inside of that, then for less than $40, you've got a garment that would work and particularly fitted for what that patient needs. Now, in Texas and in the southern states, sometimes neoprene gets pretty warm in the warm weather and may not be comfortable. I do hear folks that live up north in the cold weather that they like that. And sometimes even the change from warm to cold, taking the mask off, walking into a house, going out into cold weather can affect their swelling. So they like having that mask to help deal with that change in temperature. Other things that are options, this is really more for the therapist to think about. If you've got the Circaid compression systems for the legs, they always come with extra straps. And so this is a very small little petite lady, and we used the strap, we combined it with a pad, and then this works great. Her swelling was only under her chin, so this applies pressure under there, then this works well. Now I'm going to show you some custom facials that were made with the Circaids. I did not do these. These were made by a friend of mine who is a very skilled therapist, and he combined these. Looks kind of weird, but it works for these particular cases. I tried to replicate that. I did not do a very pretty job, but for this particular gentleman, he didn't have any funds, It worked okay for what he needed, and he didn't mind that it wasn't a high fashion kind of a garment. So there are challenges when we talk about compression. It's not simply grab a garment and go. There are situations where it can be too cumbersome or expensive. There are problems where a patient will put this on, and the first time they put it on, like this gentleman did, he grabbed it by the eyes and he pulled it down over his face, and he stretched the eyes out, and he adjusted the nose by trying to adjust that. And so it stretched the nose out too much, it stretched the eyes out too much, and it ruined the garment. And for him, this was a saving event. He had to save his money in order to buy the garment. And the first time that he put it on at home, he just ruined it. So luckily the vendor made him another one after I explained it to him. But we have to be careful. We have to make sure that it's easy to replace, easy to remove, and that the patient is able to follow those directions. Sometimes we need a caregiver to help with that. So a spouse or a friend or family member, somebody who can help get that on and off. Most of these are going to be Velcroed in the back, maybe zippered, and that may be hard for someone to reach. Also have to have good judgment to use these things appropriately. Some people are of a mindset that, well, if a little bit is good, a lot must be better, and they really want it super tight. And too tight is bad also. So we want it to be just snug enough where it's giving the compression that we need. But if someone is not using good safety judgment and they're wearing it too tightly, it can interfere with their breathing and other problems. And we have to be careful with that. We also need to be compliant with this. And just with any aspect of therapy, we have to be going with good compliance with whatever the recommendations are. So like I said, I want someone, if they're going to wear my compression garment beforehand, 30 minutes to soften that hard tissue up. And then after MLD, 3 to 4 hours, which is a long time to ask someone to do. But if I can ever get someone to buy into that routine, it's quite effective for most people. Not everybody should wear compression. If a cancer has returned, for example, if a patient's had recurrence, and sometimes this results in terrible facial swelling because the tumor is blocking the drainage vessels and all the fluid is trapped up here and it can't go anywhere. Well, if we apply pressure to that with a mask, it's just going to make the swelling get worse, and it's going to make the fluid go into an area where there's an opening, like the mouth or the eyes or that. And so sometimes we stop compression in a situation like this, what we would call palliative therapy, where we're doing manual lymph drainage for quality of life and reducing discomfort, but we don't want to do compression because of that. If you have an open wound or there is a tumor that's exposed, the garment can bother that and cause tissue irritation. We don't want to do that. If the garment causes you pain, I've had a few patients over the years that have had super sensitive skin. We may be able to add a liner to the inside of a garment to make it softer so it doesn't irritate the skin. But I know patients who are so sensitive that even with that, it was too hard for them and we had to avoid it. If it makes you anxious and claustrophobic. So many people who've had head and neck radiation develop head and neck lymphedema. And if you had head and neck radiation, you know that that radiation mask is very claustrophobic, can be traumatic for some people. And so I've had a few cases where patients weren't too excited about the idea of putting a mask on after they'd had radiation. And so we always had to accommodate that. If you have, I mentioned this earlier, severely blocked carotid arteries in your neck, your doctor would need to guide you on that. And the general rule of thumb is that if it's less than 75% blocked, we can apply gentle compression to that area. But if you have a blockage that's 80 or 90 or 95% blocked, we need to be careful around that area. And I don't want to put direct pressure right in there. So if you know that's a problem, or you have a history of strokes or TIAs or other vascular problems, that's something worth looking at to make sure that you don't have a problem. If you happen to faint or get dizzy when you're shaving or washing your neck, or you apply a little bit of pressure, there's a situation where you can have blood pressure changes and heart rate changes if we apply pressure to that area. And so we need to be aware of that as well. Finally, if the compression makes your swelling get worse, it's not doing what it's supposed to. So we would need to adjust that, modify things, and hopefully we can correct the problem where it does not create that issue. I did have a patient one time who had bad kidney disease, and whenever we put any compression on him, his neck and face would swell up worse because he couldn't handle the movement of the fluid with the MLD or the compression combined. MLD by himself, he did okay, but compression bothered him. So the question always is, how can I get all this done? You're asking me to wear this thing 3 to 4 hours a day. You're asking me to massage. I tend to ask my folks to do this after dinner, do their MLD routine, wear the padding in the garment while you're watching your TV or on television or on the computer or whatever you're doing, and then take it off before you go to bed, or possibly try to sleep in it. Some people can sleep in these garments, some people can't. If it's an off-the-shelf garment, it's not made for you, it may slip and slide. If it's a custom garment, it ought to fit you perfectly, and you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. But for some people, it's too much. Some people have to sleep with CPAP machine, other things like that. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable in whatever you're doing and that you can use it at a functional level. For you, that may mean that you do this in smaller segments a couple of times a day, but ideally we would like you to do the MLD routine followed by the compression right away. That tends to be the best result. But I've had people do it hit and miss throughout the day, just piece it together the best they can. I've had folks get up early in the morning and do their routines before they go to work. I've had people wear their garments while they're driving down the road. I had one gentleman who was so comfortable with it that he would put his garment on right after his therapy routine, and he drove home and he decided he needed to go to Walmart, and he had a full face mask on, and he went into Walmart with his mask. He forgot he had it on, and the security guard stopped him, thought he was going to rob the place. So that was in the days before we all had to wear masks for COVID. So the longer we wear it, the longer the delay in the refilling of the tissues. That's what we're hoping for. So those folks who are able to sleep in their garment all night long oftentimes have faster results and better carryover. But some compression is better than none. Wear it as you can wear it and see what you can do. Now, some people don't like compression. They hate it. I don't want to do it. What else can we talk about? Okay. Taping. Okay. Elastic therapeutic taping is another option. It's an in-between. It's between manual lymphatic drainage and compression. So it enhances the effect of the MLD because as you move, it lifts and stretches the skin. It can be used underneath the compression, but if you can't wear compression, you don't want to wear compression, you can also use this. It always amazes me that somebody will wear tape across their face like this in their neck, but they don't want to wear a compression garment. So whatever you want to do, we will try to accommodate. So some people don't like to wear the compression, but they will wear the tape. The tape can stay in place for 2 or 3 days at a time for most folks. It just depends on your tolerance with your skin. Here are some examples of different applications. So some of these folks were students in my class. They gave me permission to show these. But what we can see is that we can apply different ways to address the fluid. And so where the little fingers are, it's pulling fluid, draining it back to where the more solid piece is. So you see here the gentleman on the top, the solid piece is in the back, excuse me, in the bottom there. That patient applied it into his armpits. On the patient on the bottom right, that patient is going to the collarbones. These are different applications going to the back. The lady there on the right loves the tape. She hates compression. She'll wear the tape no matter where she goes, likes it no matter how we put it on her. And that was what really helped her to be compliant. We found something that she could do and that was effective for her. So compression can be very effective. It maximizes the treatment effect from your manual lymphatic drainage. The longer you wear it, the longer the tissues take to refill. So the more you can wear it, the better off. There's more options than what you think out there, but we have to be safe. We want to make sure that we get the right equipment and use good judgment. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this screen off and we can have some questions.
Thank you so much, Brad. That was awesome. You know, I never knew the history of the reason why we call the Schneider Pack, and I learned something new from you today, and I'm so excited. That's so
Unbelievable.
cool to know the history of that.
Bernd, if you've
yeah.
never met Bernd, he is a master therapist, and he cuts his pads with a knife.
Yeah,
So,
I never met Bernd. I would love to see that one day.
he's coming.
Yeah. We do have a couple of questions. And the first is, I lost it. 1 second. There was one.
Radiation?
I think it was more about coverage. Are all these head and neck compression garments that you've shown covered by insurance?
No. So depending on what garment you get, you might have insurance coverage, you might not. Medicare doesn't pay for compression garments for the head and neck. So, and some of the vendors choose not to use insurance. So for that reason, they can keep their costs lower. I've had patients who were insistent on using insurance, and it took us a little bit longer to get it approved. I tried to go through the VA for some people to get garments, and that was a challenge, but they eventually came through and paid. So it's variable according to what the patient needs. I tend to go with off the shelf simply because I can get them quicker. They're least costly, and I can make them work for most folks. But when I use a custom, most of the time it's an out of cost because we use a cheaper garment.
Thank you for that. Okay. What are your thoughts on the FlexiTouch head and neck pump?
There's a use for that. The times that I tend to refer for the FlexiTouch pump is 2 or 3. One, a patient has a reason that he can't perform self-MLD, or a caregiver can't perform self-MLD to an acceptable degree. Maybe it's orthopedic issues, maybe it's cognitive issues, lots of problems that come into play that I can't remember, or I can't follow the directions, and it's not an effective tool for them. That's a good idea maybe for the pump. Also, if I've got a patient who lives out in the country, doesn't have access to a good therapist, then they're going to use the pump. And the pump replicates the massage aspect of treatment. It doesn't deal with the compression aspect of treatment. So even if someone's using the pump, they should still wear a compression garment afterwards, because just the massaging aspect of the pump is the same as just doing the MLD by itself. So I like it for certain circumstances. It's usually not my first approach to patients unless they have some limitation that prevents them from doing manual lymphatic drainage up front.
Thank you. A question from Lori is, I was told by my PT not to wear the tape under compression, but are you saying that we can? And how about under the night garments or under the pump?
I would tell you to listen to your therapist, go with the recommendations which your therapist gives you. I have had good success with my patients wearing tape under compression. That way they don't have to take it on and off, and they can leave it on for 2 or 3 days. I have not found that it's been less effective to do it with that. With regard to the pump, I don't know that I've personally had a patient who has had tape on and used the pump, but I don't see any indications not to do so.
Thank you, Brad. In the chat we have from PETA or PETA, what can we do for patients with head and neck lymphedema who have neck swelling while they are having radiation?
Good question. So my rule for that is, and let's just two forms of 2 cases here. One case, the patient has not had any surgery and he's just starting radiation. Okay. I wouldn't have had any reason to start MLD before the radiation starts. So if there is swelling that occurs during the radiation, then certainly you can start to do manual lymphatic drainage as long as the skin is intact, pain levels are okay, the patient's not going to be too tender to do this. More often, I tend to see patients who have had surgery, we've started to do lymphedema treatment, and now they're starting radiation. So we may be using compression before radiation, but I stop compression when radiation starts. And then we continue with manual lymphatic drainage until their skin gets too tender. I've had patients continue throughout the entire course of radiation, continue to massage the entire time, and they do great. And then I've had patients by week 2 or 3 or 4 that their skin's a little too tender and they can't do it. So I encourage them to do what they can as long as they can, but I don't like compression over top of radiated skin. 2 reasons. 1, radiated skin doesn't let heat evaporate as well as non-radiated skin. And so we tend to trap the heat in there if we put something over top of it. 2, they're usually having to wear ointments and creams and such on the neck after that to keep the skin in good shape. And I don't want to put the compression garment right over top of that.
Thank you. Just wanted to share that Shashi is saying, thank you, Brad. It is a great learning experience, exclamation.
Thank you very much.
And then we have a question from Holly. She asked, how soon after radiation would you apply light elastic tape over the radiated tissue?
It all depends on the integrity of the skin and the sensitivity. So generally, and everybody's different, but generally by 4 weeks after radiation, most of the external skin is well healed. I've known people who 2 weeks were completely healed. I've known people 6 weeks and they still weren't. So average, say around 4 weeks, you'd want to take a small piece and put it on as a sample just to make sure there's no skin irritation. Certainly, I would never, ever apply it to any place that has an open wound, poorly torn, poorly healed skin tears, those kind of things. I want to make sure the skin is well healed before I do that.
Thank you, Brad. I think this is the last question. It is that this person has primary lymphedema, bilateral legs and torso since the age of 5. The routine is compression all day, but then the torso fills and gets really clogged through the thighs and torso. This person swims after work and then does 20 minutes of Pilates and then the pump and then the nighttime garment. Is there anything else that can be done? This person has fibrotic toes, some in the ankle, some in the knee, but the integrity of the skin is good. And this person would like to improve truncal flow and she is struggling. Any other ideas? She has a low BMI and she's very active.
So I'm going to direct that to you since I don't deal with trunk and lower extremity.
Yeah, I think, the main focus of today's talk is head and neck. And so I'll answer this briefly. It seems as though you have quite a rigorous regimen going on there. And it seems as though you're doing a lot of things right. But just like, for example, you could say that you're doing MLD, but MLD is not MLD, right? Like this is not MLD, but some person might define this as MLD, and this is just gently brushing the skin, and this is MLD, right? So what I'd like to propose is 2 things. The first is, speak with your therapist, make sure that, all the components that you're doing in terms of your complete decongestive therapy is being done well and as effective as possible, such as MLD, such as your compression strategies. The second thing is, consider the possibility that if you could be doing everything right, but each body has, its own personality. And it might be that maintaining it at what you have right now might be the best. But never give up hope. If you want it to be even better than it is now, then look at the components of each part of the therapy and see if maybe we can improve the effectiveness. So definitely work with your therapist. And for all these things, definitely, I always forget to do this disclaimer until like the end. But please make sure that all of these things, you are working very closely with a healthcare professional, with your therapist, your lymphedema therapist, with your doctors, with your medical team to make sure that everything that, is being prescribed is being done well. It's really important. The focus of our webinars is just to kind of inspire you and help you to learn new things and maybe understand the concepts a little bit more deeply so that you can then know why you have to do certain things. And again, like inspiration is really the main goal of our webinars, not to replace any healthcare advice or treatment. So that's very important. Another disclaimer is that everything, you know, that Brad has a lot of experience, but nonetheless, just for the sake of the National Lymphedema, I have to say that, you know, all the presenters for the month, the views and suggestions and everything presented are the opinions of the presenters themselves, and do not necessarily reflect the position of the National Lymphedema Network. And again, as I said before, same thing with the products. Even though we are connecting you to our amazing sponsors, we do not endorse any of the products that we are connecting you to. You just, you know, we're just trying to let you know of the treatment options available out there. So, Brad, that was an absolutely amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words to share? Like, what's your message to the lymphedema community?
Well, before I get to my message, I saw another question that popped up that said, I've never seen short stretch bandaging on the head. Doesn't it slide off? Depending on how you wrap it, it can slide off. But if you were to take your 2 layers, let me see if I can get this ring to see it. My 2 layers of fabric here, and I separate this where I've got 2 over the head instead of just 1 like this, then I can get this where it's going to slide and fit over the back of my head more fully. And that will keep it from sliding off so much. But if you put it where it's just directly like this, it will be more to slide. If you tend to slip that over like this, half coverage, it'll be better. My message in general is head and neck lymphedema, I believe, is in some ways easier to manage than edema in the arms and the legs. If you think about it, it's a small area. It's very easily accessible for most folks, and it responds very well to treatment. And if you are struggling with that and you don't have any access to someone who has some experience, try to find someone who has some experience with head and neck lymphedema. Reach out to somebody who can guide you. NLN, Jeanette's wonderful as a resource to be able to connect you with various people. You feel free to email me if you have questions. I'm glad to do so, and I can connect you to someone in your area, hopefully. Over the years, I've done a lot of classes and met a lot of folks, and so know some folks pretty much everywhere. So glad to help. Always pursue help. There's something that can be done most of the time. And for the head and neck cases, even though some of them are quite severe, there's usually something that we can do. So I'm a big proponent of giving something a try and see if it works, even if it may not be traditional.
Thank you so much, Brad. We really appreciate your talk, and we appreciate having you on today. Thank you so much for contributing to our month-long series of webinars.
Thanks for having me. Y'all take care.
Thank you. Okay, it is now my pleasure. I would like to introduce my team. I always like to do that because they are just so amazing, and you just have to know who they are because they're just so important to like the functioning of the NLN. And so ladies, if you can please come on to the scene, that would be great. And we have on the upper left-hand corner, Alyssa Fiorito. She is our garment program manager. So for all of our NLN members, I'm sure that you are in frequent communication with her as she gets the garment orders out to your patients. That's a program that is definitely available to our NLN members. And just to elaborate for a moment, our new membership structure is such that we have supporters, and supporters are not available to take advantage, are not able to take advantage of the NLN garment program. But then we have the clinician members who can, and with the new membership structure, you can basically submit 5 applications, each individual member. It's definitely a little bit of a change from our previous structure where an affiliate membership, like let's say it's one organization, and if you had like, 25 therapists under that organization, that whole organization could only submit 10 applications for the year. With this new structure, each individual therapist can basically submit 5 applications. So you actually kind of get more. So anyway, Alyssa, thank you so much for managing our program. Also below her, we have Erin Sokolsky. She is our marketing manager. She basically creates all of the wonderful text and verbiage that you see coming out from the NLN. And she is the manager of our email blasts as well. And then to the bottom of her driving is Jennifer Williams. She is our continuing education manager. And she does, she's the one who basically gets all the certificates out, the CEU certificates out to our therapists. And she also is the one who helped me in terms of submitting applications for our AOTA and our New York occupational therapy providership. And so hopefully we'll get that approval pretty soon. Thank you, Jennifer. And last but not least on video, we have Veronica Scenarios. She is our social media manager. So everything that you see coming out on LinkedIn and Facebook, she is in charge of all of that. Let me see who was not on the call today. We have Nicole Ballard, who is also our membership manager. She was not able to make it in video because basically her kids are active in sports, and their sports pickup time basically is always 5 o'clock. So she can never join us this month. I feel as though there's, Christy Blair. Oh my gosh. For some reason your video was, there she is. Christy Blair, she is our project manager. And so she does a lot of important things for the NLN, too many to list. So thank you, Christy, for coming on. Okay. So with that, it is now my pleasure to welcome Essity Jobst, who is our Magenta sponsor, again, which just means that they really supported the NLN this year. And so we're so grateful for your sponsorship support. And on video right now, we have Rita Scala and we have Rachel Lucas. And please give them your love and attention to this sponsored portion of today's webinar.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jeanette. Thank you for having us. And thank you to Brad, because that presentation was wonderful and I just learned so much. So we're going to bring you through to just kind of follow up on everything that Brad went through with you, what we have available for our head and neck products. Okay. So just a little bit about the statistics here. So head and neck cancers account for about 4% of all the cancers in the US. And this year, actually an estimated 65,630 people. And you can actually see the breakdown here. It's 48,200 men and 17,430 women will develop head and neck cancer. It's estimated that it leads to about 14,500 deaths. And again, here you can see the breakdown. 10,760 men and about 3,740 women for head and neck cancers that will happen this year. And these statistics that we do get are adopted from the American Cancer Society's publication, and this is the Cancer Facts and Figures. We're going to go into our JoviPak. JoviPak is one of the companies that we have with our Essity family here. And some of you may have heard of JoviPak, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the options that we have for the entire head and the neck. And they're all made with this really nice, soft cotton and lycra fabric, and they're filled with a 4-blend foam. And this is why I loved Brad's presentation. We saw so many different options, and some people get really creative there. But if you've ever seen one of these products, this blended foam truly does work, and it's very soft and feels good on the skin. We also have, all of these products have a base and a 2-position adjustable chin strap. They're very comfortable and easy to don and doff. So the pictures that we're showing you here are the options that we have for our ready-to-wear garments that are with our JoviPak family. So everything that you're seeing here, this is going to be our very soft cotton and lycra, the 4-blend foam, and you can see the various chin straps that we have available and how much of the face that they do cover. So here we go with our head and neck pads. So this slide here is actually showing you, this is the insert. This is called I have it right here. This one here is what you actually put into your chin strap. So this is called, okay, so this is your insert that you put in. Again, very soft. The outside layer is a soft organic cotton, and then the inside is that 4-blend foam. And you can see the eyepiece there we have too. Multi-purpose pads. With our JoviPak family, We have a lot of different shapes and sizes and which we can make these pads. So again, these are going to be covered with that really nice organic soft cotton, and then the blended foam will be sewn into the pad. And this here is just showing you the various options that we do have available. Now, when we put the slide in here, I was a little concerned, and I love that Brad did speak to this, is these are the pit pads that Brad was showing you in his presentation. And these are very aggressive. We saw a slide there with the gentleman who had only used them for a few minutes. So if you are going to use these, they really should be done under your therapist supervision. And how we make these are sterilized cherry pits. And they're really used to address that long-standing woody fibrosis. You can order them as a standalone, or they can really be used under any compression system. But again, we really, really caution you to only use these with your therapist supervision. And this is a decision that you and your therapist would make together. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Rachel Lucas, now, and she is going to go over some of the other options that we have for you, our Jobst Custom Seam family.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rachel Lucas. I would like to talk to you about custom seamed and some additional options. We did hear a little bit from Brad in the presentation about custom options, and I do think personally this is a fabulous option that I actually use a lot with patients I see, because with custom you do have that perfect fit, which is always optimal for anybody, because this garment's made just for you. So we utilize these garments quite a bit. There's a lot of options in this particular fabric. It's a thinner fabric, so it's easy to wear, which is why I find that a lot of people like it. I use this middle option quite a bit, this face mask with nose covering. It tends to be a good option for people. And some people will have swelling up into the cheek area, areas that maybe just a chin strap won't cover, or even into the eyes, as Brad addressed in his presentation. But these are customized. They're really easy to measure for. People tend to be daunted by them, but they're pretty simple. And we can cover various areas of the face or leave it open even in this fabric. But with a thinner fabric, it's a little bit easier to wear sometimes. So it's nice to have options. Foam is fabulous for breaking down fibrosis and moving fluid out, but sometimes people want something thinner for different purposes in their life, or they might use both. So we do have quite a few options, and the custom seamed is one of them. These are made in North Carolina, and they are often made by hand, which is wonderful. So we have a really dedicated team there who works on these garments and puts a lot of time and care into them. So just one that you guys should know about is the custom seamed option. And then some off-the-shelf options that we have in a more inexpensive category are the fascioplasty garments. These fall under our plastic surgery line. And one that we use is that one on the left, the beige one, is probably more common. It's called the Epstein fascioplasty. And that is a choice that a lot of people go with when they're just starting to explore options in the head and neck. If they don't want to commit to, a more customized or more advanced garment, this is a simple choice for them. You can insert padding into this, which I find a lot of therapists and patients do. They'll use this as their simple garment. It is a very lightweight compression, just something to note. You'll get more compression out of the other options that we've mentioned so far, but these are certainly cost-effective and great choices for patients. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, at Jobst, we have a lot of core values that we like to embody. Education is really important to us, and I'll talk a little bit about our medical advisor and lymphology team in a moment here, but we do a lot of education through our Jobst Compression Institute website. It's a site that you can connect with. You can view videos on there of a lot of our team members have created videos of products, of donning and measuring, and all kinds of things. But we also offer webinars and online CEU events. There's a lot of workshops. Education's a really big part of what we do, particularly on our team. Communication with the clinician and the patient are also really important to us. We often advise, on garment choice and give a lot of input there to therapists as they're treating patients, and point them in the right direction of, which options based on patients' individual scenarios, because everyone's unique. So communication is really important to us. And then we do have quite a few key partnerships that we associate with, including the NLN. And then I'll talk a little bit more about our technological excellence, mouthful, on the next slide. But then one more thing is that we do have social responsibility. And I know that Jeanette talked about the NLN Garment Fund, and that's something that we contribute to in addition to other contributions we make, like natural disasters and things like that. But that is important to us as an organization.
Yep.
So technological excellence, and I did want to speak to this a little bit because this kind of speaks for all of the medical manufacturers who make compression garments and medical devices, because there's a lot out there, as you guys saw, and even Brad's presentation. And if you look on the internet, if you look in a catalog, often compression's everywhere these days. It's absolutely everywhere. It's very popular. But not everything is created equal. And when you're a medical device manufacturer, you're held to pretty high standards. And we have to adhere to a lot of different testing through the FDA. We have a lot of protocols that we are held to make sure that our garments are like fitting into that class 2 medical support stocking, because that's really important to make sure that your compression is true gradient, which means that the compression's lessening as it moves upward on the body to move fluid or blood in the direction that we're going. So we do have continuous testing and research, medical professional feedback, and then we do a lot of tests on our garments individually, including fit trials with patients, which we study that pretty in depth, and with new products as we're launching, or continuously with products that we make. And we have focus groups with therapists and patients involved where they trial our garments and give us feedback. So it's just important to really have, high standards when you're working with these types of products, because they're going on people and they're medical devices and they're really important in people's lives. And then our medical advisor team, this is very near and dear to my heart because I'm part of this team. Rita is as well. There are, I think, 14 or 15 of us medical advisors in the country. And we have a couple other people on our lymphology team who are part of this division. And we cover the US as a whole. Everyone's contact information is listed here. If you'd like to connect with somebody and you don't see this screen or aren't able to jot it down, then we're happy to get you that information afterwards. But we have this amazing team. You'll see a lot of letters behind names here. There's a lot of people on the team who are wound specialists. There's a lot of people who are either lymphedema therapists, PTs and OTs, or who have studied the program pretty extensively. And there's a lot of tenureship on this team. So the average person on the team has been here 10+ years, and we are very, very passionate about what we do. One of my colleagues the other day said we overcare, which I agree with a lot. So please reach out to us. We're really into lymphology. This is what we do. This is our world. And we do have reps that we work with, but our role is more specific to custom garments, all lymphology garments. And then we're connected with the therapists and the patients and the DMEs who service these products. So we're happy to work with you, and thank you for your time tonight as well. And thanks for taking the time to listen to us. And please feel free to reach out if you need anything.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rita and Rachel. I'm just trying to like get our screen to be in gallery view, and I think I just got it. Okay. Yes, that is a very important point that Rachel mentioned. SD Jobs is a continuous sponsor of the garment program. And I just wanted to highlight and point out that it used to be called a fund, but the problem was that people assumed that when it was called a fund, that it meant that people can submit for reimbursement of like treatment or travel to treatment or stuff like that. So we changed the program to the NLN Garment Program because it is only a program where we offer complimentary garments to patients who demonstrate financial need, specifically to the patients of our members. Otherwise, we just needed some way to control it. Otherwise, otherwise SD Jobs would be giving out like thousands of garments every year. They already give out hundreds, but over the years they have given out thousands, and we are so grateful again for your sponsorship support of that program. We're so grateful. Let's see if there are any questions for you. I don't see any questions in the Q&A tab, but let's see for the chat. There are no questions there either. I guess you guys did such a thorough job that no questions were warranted. So I always like to end by asking, what is your message to the lymphedema community?
Oh, are you talking us?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're really here, as Rachel pointed out, with Essity, we're now Essity, a Jobs company, but we really have a lot of layers to help people. So basically, in addition to ourselves, we are very specialized in lymphedema. This is our call point. We talk with therapists all day, we troubleshoot, and then we have our territory managers as well, but we really are here to help you. And we realize how just unique everybody is. And, there's no cookie cutter approach to this. So I love that we bring so many products, that are just to really create that compliance and something that people can actually use. So I think a lot of my time is really spent saying, what is going to work? Like, what is going to make this patient compliant? And let's just get them very comfortable and compliant.
Thank you so much, Rita. And Rachel, anything to add?
I think Rita said it really well. I agree that a lot of what we're doing is, as our team specifically, is addressing the needs of individual patients. So we spend a lot of time just looking at pictures and talking with therapists and, addressing what that patient needs. And cost is always taken into account because it's unique to everybody. So yeah, that's from our perspective. It's let's see what we can do for you as a person. I personally, and I know all of the MAs, we do a ton of fittings, and we put our hands on people, and we get in the room and we hear your story, and we work with you, and we're happy to do it. So, and I love Jeanette's hat. So
I do too. I
have to order it.
Thank you. You too can have this hat if you visit the NLN store. It's lymphnet.org/store. We're just getting ready to launch it, but it's a soft launch via our webinars. But you can have it too. So we'd like to end with the giveaway. And, again, thank you so much again for your continued generosity. You're going to give away a Jovi head and neck garment. Nice. And so the way that we're going to do this tonight, because I didn't have time to say earlier on to put it into Vanessa's idea of the wheel of names, is if you are somebody who would like a Jovi head and neck garment, please raise your hand. The only caveat is that you must, if you're a patient, you must be actively working with a therapist. And of course, if you're a therapist who's interested in giving it away to a patient, no big deal, raise your hand. So we're going to give you 15 seconds to raise your hands. And then perhaps which of you two ladies would like to choose? You can, yeah, so you choose. So what you'll do is go to the participants, all right? Okay. And then go to attendees.
Hold on. Okay, so I'm seeing attendees 32.
Yep, and go all the way to the top.
Okay.
You'll see 3 hands raised.
So is it the first hand that went up?
I don't know about the order, but I believe you know, you can choose between one of those three names that are highlighted with the raised hand.
Okay, well, I will go with Anna Polazzi.
Thank you. Anna, well, you know, Anna, I know pretty well. She and Oscar have a private practice in New Jersey, right, Anna? I believe, you know what? Allow me to not misspeak. I'm not exactly sure where you're located because I misspoke before. I said that the Cercade, you know, toe cap was not trimmable because I saw that there were seams at the end, but I totally lied. I am so sorry about that. It is trimmable. So Anna, I don't know where you're located. I am misremembering maybe, but I vaguely remember New Jersey, but I could be lying. And nonetheless, forget that. Congratulations on this. And we're going to connect you with Rita and with Rachel after this. And to everyone who stayed on to the end, thank you so much for your time and attention. And for those of you who have been joining us every day, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.